Was this ending always the plan for Dar-Benn?
No.
Oh.
So there was always going to be an epic death, just because in terms of, I just think in terms of like just bringing that story psychologically for Carol like to a close, I think was always the best thing. You know, you don't want to think, did she defeat her? Is this over? Is she going to be kind of doomed to this life of feeling guilty about this whole thing, you know, forever and ever? Or is she going to get this redemptive moment where Dar-Benn's out of the picture and then she gets to almost take on the mantle of what she was trying to do? You know, it's a really redemptive arc for that character.
Zawe, thank you so much for hanging with us on Phase Zero. We really appreciate you talking Marvel with us.
It's literally my pleasure. We haven't been able to talk about it at all. So
I know.
This is a gorgeous thing to do. Thank you.
Of course. So we just have some fun questions for you. We're going to celebrate you being a part of the Marvels, part of the MCU. And I want to start at the beginning with you. Just going back to like auditioning for the role. What kind of secrets did they keep from you at the beginning? How much information did they tell you? What was the conversation at home like when, you know, your Loki's there right next to you? Like, you know, how kind of advice did you get? Just that first step into the MCU, what was that all like for you?
Great question. I mean, I have to be honest, weirdly enough, I didn't audition for this role. I've auditioned for many Marvel roles before. You know, and the process is usually the same. You have like these sides that are dummy sides meaning like these small pieces of script that you go in and you prepare and you say, but you have no idea the character that you might be playing, or you have no idea of the movie. And then the movie comes out and you're like, huh, it was that character. Wow. Oh, I get it now. So with this, my audition really was just meeting Nia, and we had this amazing connection over Zoom during COVID, talking about a completely different movie. And when COVID was kind of, you know, being worked through in terms of being able to get back to set and stuff, she was like, I have this new job. I want you to be in this movie. I was like, what movie? She's like, Captain Marvel 2. I was like, okay. So it was more a conversation. And then it was full throttle, getting the information, understanding the character, understanding that Dar-Benn was not necessarily a character that we knew very well from the comic book source material, and just having to build out this villain and have her go up against the most powerful person in the universe, you know, and how that was all going to look and sound and work. And so that was kind of my entry point, really.
That ties perfectly into my first question, which is I'm a huge comic fan. I bought Dar-Benn's first appearance right before the movie came out. I was so happy. But she is a character that has not a lot of comic precedent around her. How does that impact the process of kind of being able to put your own stamp on her?
I think it impacts it quite a lot. You know, I think you have to do a lot of work joining the dots, because, you know, one of the things I've become so aware of is how much respect you need to put on the fans' names when it comes to Marvel. You know, this isn't just a world that existed because like actors and directors came along and went, hey, we've got this great idea. You know, this is a world and a fandom that existed for a very, very long time. So I had to admit that was like a lot of pressure. You know, I wanted to get it right. I wanted us all to get it right. And at the same time, I wanted us to take that free reign and that kind of artistic license that we had, because she's not hugely known, or he originally was not hugely known. You know, for me, the gender swap thing, I think lots of people had a lot to say. I don't know. I didn't read anything, but I have a lot of comic book self-proclaimed nerd friends, and they're like, so yours is going to go down, you know. And I was like, eek. But actually, I don't necessarily see it so much as this epic swap as not a variant, obviously, but is there like a building on something that maybe was ripe for building on, and so yeah, it was scary, but it was
That is
also
such a
fun.
fascinating answer. One thing I've been dying to know since watching the movie, your costumes are so incredible. How does putting on such massive shoulder pads in the coat that you wear kind of help with the process of getting into character?
It helps hugely because you probably know about this, but one of the first things that I learned in the stunt gym with our most amazing stunt team, who basically are the people along with the VFX and production teams, and and all the heads of department. They are the people who make these movies, right? Really, from the inside, because they make people like me look like I've been doing what they've been doing for a really long time. And one of the first things you have to learn is something that I now dub Marvel shoulders. So there's like normal shoulders. Then there's like shoulders that you think are going to make you look powerful when you're doing the stunt work. And they're like, you have to like these are Marvel shoulders, right? You're basically, your shoulder blades are touching in the back. And so building that out in terms of costume and how that helped me move physically was amazing, actually. And I will say, maybe more than anything, the hair and makeup was a massive transformative moment. The moment we decided to have this kind of light gray, lilac-y hair that was kind of very otherworldly, and this grill that was like for me, a nod to the sort of silverware that the original Dar-Benn has in the comics, like the big kind of metal helmet. I was like, we need to carry that through as a thread somehow. We got to have some metallic something somewhere. And it ended up being, in the teeth as this grill. Obviously the crazy green eye situation was like a huge step as well. And then all of this stuff around my hammer, like the hammer was a big thing. You got to respect the hammer. You have to learn how to move with it. And it became like a friend. I named her Teresa.
That ham, this is actually, you're really leading us into our next question so perfectly. I don't know how thank you. But my next question is actually the Kree hammer that you're using. Us Marvel nerds, when we first saw it in the trailer, we're immediately like, that's that thing Ronan had in Guardians of the Galaxy. So when you see that prop, when you first get introduced to the character, does that become part of the conversation? Like, are you made aware of that connection, or do you already know it because you watch Guardians? Like, how does that all come into play for the performance? Because for us, it's such a fun part of the storytelling. We love making the connections. Does that impact you and your work as Dar-Benn at all?
I knew about that connection because I had seen the movie, but I got to be honest with you, because I'm not going to be able to fake it with you guys. We didn't really talk about the huge connection,
right,
of the hammer. We just knew it was a huge Kree artifact. We didn't go so much into the backstory of the hammer. I wish we had. But in our story, the hammer and this ancient bangle, obviously, which is so much in Ms. Marvel's world, we're working sort of in tandem. So that was more the conversation. It was like, how do these powers create larger powers? Like, how do I use the hammer in order to get where I need to go in this particular movie, which is like making jump points, or like feeding off the power in the bangle in order to get more physical strength, more immunity, whatever it might be. So it was more about that, talking about the hammer in this world.
Did you keep it?
But obviously, yeah, Ronan and I have not kept the hammer. I wonder why. Maybe they just want to put it in a museum or something. But I do have like a rubbery fake hammer that I took home to practice, which is still.
Hell yeah. That's fun.
eBay. What do we think? What do you think my chances are?
Forget it. I mean,
my gosh.
If for some reason the acting thing doesn't work out, I think maybe there's like a good chunk of the mortgage paid for in a Marvel prop.
Noted.
Yeah. And I will be the first bidder.
Absolutely.
Dar-Benn's motivations, I really, really liked how they go back to the events of the end of the first Captain Marvel movie. I really thought that was a clever connection. And so there's so much time in between the events of Captain Marvel, and now we're post Endgame, we're post, we're 2023, 24, sometime much later in the MCU. And a lot has happened. Thanos, the blip, all these kind of crazy events, both on Earth and in the cosmos. Is that something, like, just much like the hammer, is that something you all discussed? Did you get an opportunity to kind of fill in the blanks on Dar-Benn's backstory since the first Captain Marvel, or did you have to do that on your own, and what was on the page was what was on the screen, and that was as far as you went?
That was where we began. I feel like I had my own Marvel encyclopedia on set, which was Iman Vellani. If you need to know anything, just go to Iman. It's why she will be the center of this universe for many years to come. It's why she should have like a ring or something that we should all kiss if we make a movie with her. She should just be like anointed somehow. So she was amazing for that. But quite honestly, there was a lot of artistic license that had to be used in terms of the relationship to Captain Marvel. But hopefully people think, because we worked really hard on it, that in terms of a representation of the Kree and sort of building out some of the more emotional beats of the Kree and a little bit more of their situation and history. Hopefully everyone thinks that that was sort of successful, because that was like a really huge part of the responsibility that I felt like I was carrying. Something Nia wanted to get right. We all wanted to get right. This people have been part of this universe for a very long time, and obviously we know Carol's history with them, but in terms of like inserting Dar-Benn's story of vengeance into that, we did have to apply this artistic license. But hopefully the main meat and potatoes of that story, which is how much confusion Carol has after these huge events that surround her in the Kree, like hopefully that part of it has been built out. And I think also to get a glimpse into Carol's psychology, like you're saying at the end of the first movie, and where she's at now in terms of like, am I a hero, am I a villain, when people are calling me the Annihilator, like that somehow rings true, and it's painful. And how do I put this right? I as an actor found that a very interesting choice.
Yeah.
That's so fascinating. So when it came time to fight Carol in the movie, you're also fighting Monica and Kamala as well. As the one person who's not swapping in and out during those fight scenes, how was that? Was that a challenge in any way?
I think I'm still sweating. I think I still have sweat patches from that time. Do you know what? It was absolutely amazing. And I have to say, like, we have to put respect on every actor who's come through this universe's name, who's had this physical work to do, because it is not easy and it's an endurance test. And even if you're like a great level of fit, you haven't done stunts probably before to this level. And there are these different ways that you have to enter into them. You're doing them to feel like you're physically fighting someone, but also you have powers that are like alien and otherworldly, so your body has to move in different ways. For the camera you need to look epic, like look at your amazing Batman in the background there. You can't just be like, I'm like throwing a punch from the hip. You got to be like, I'm coming out here and round, and like to create those epic comic book style moves. It's challenging. So anyway, I had an amazing team. I love the team. I cry when I talk about the team of some people I worked with. They looked after me. They trained me. They believed in me. I loved doing it. I did every stunt that I was allowed to insurance-wise do. And I actually, not all of the fighting made it to the screen. There's one epic fight that didn't go in and is maybe on some extras if you want to go Blu-ray with this, but it was amazing. And each of the women has a different fighting style, so you're always kind of coming up against this different style and like finding out the ways that you battle each one of them individually based on what you know about their fighting style was so much fun. Like one of them, you just have to do a lot of blocking because they come in from a certain way, or another one you have to go in with a hammer, or just like a real villain would, picking out what their weaknesses and strengths were. As a character was just so satisfying. And then bringing that to life physically was honestly awesome, guys. Like, I can't really say enough about that side of it. I loved it.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you mentioned a fight scene that got left on the cutting room floor. One of my favorite things about home releases is we get to see a lot of the deleted scenes. And with Marvel movies, there's always seemingly kind of shifts and changes and adaptation along the way as they kind of test the movie and do these things and kind of maybe change their mind about some things. I love to hear about what we could expect, some stuff we didn't see that you might have shot, and how many different versions of sort of stories or action beats or sequences in the Marvels existed while you were working on it.
A lot, like a lot.
That checks out. That checks out.
It checks out. This was a film with a lot of moving parts, and certainly from Dar-Benn's perspective, from my perspective, the Cree story is so big that you couldn't delve into all of it because it would have overwhelmed this, like, essentially, like, girls' trip story that we need to really invest in. These women going from not knowing each other to becoming kind of colleagues, and then this beautiful friendship that blossoms. So there was a lot we had to leave on the cutting room floor in terms of Dar-Benn. How much of it will make the DVD extras, I don't know, but you should definitely go check it out. I had to do a lot of reshooting, which is just how these things work, all good. But I just so happened to have had a baby before I did those reshoots. So for me personally, like, the big change is like me acting in this movie pre-motherhood and me acting in this movie post-motherhood, because actually I feel like a lot more of the empathetic, emotional side of Dar-Benn started to come through when I kind of went back, and I had this rawness and I had this whole new kind of identity shift, I guess, which is like totally superhero like. And so that for me is like where I would ask anyone who was really watching closely, I'd be like, could you tell? Could you tell?
That is really cool. Oh man, if we had time, I'd ask you to tell me which scenes came later so I could tell you if I can tell. That's amazing.
So kind of on the topic of the movie evolving, was this ending always the plan for Dar-Benn?
No.
Oh.
I see him again. Oh.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't. There was always going to be, I mean, can I say spoilery things?
Yeah, this is for people who have seen the movie already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So there was always going to be an epic death, just because in terms of, I just think in terms of like just bringing that story psychologically for Carol, like, to a close, I think was always the best thing. You don't want to think, did she defeat her? Is this over? Is she going to be kind of doomed to this life of feeling guilty about this whole thing, forever and ever? Or is she going to get this redemptive moment where Dar-Benn's out of the picture and then she gets to almost take on the mantle of what she was trying to do? It's a really redemptive arc for that character. So there was always going to be like an epic fight and an epic death at the end. I will say I did a day's diving training because there was going to be a lot of water involved in the original death.
That would be interesting. And then you never filmed it?
Yeah. Then we never filmed it.
Had to go full Michael Phelps just for...
Yeah, right. Exactly. There was another ending that we did film where Brie and myself are kind of in space, still having it out, and they kind of combust together, which was really amazing. And that was just a day on wires hanging out with Brie, which is, surreal and fun. But yeah, there were a few different plans, I think.
Wow. Yeah.
Wow.
It seems like that's pretty common on a lot of these. They just keep changing and they land on what serves the story best.
Yeah. And also where all of the other threads in the universe are at that time, again, it's like putting respect on the fans' names and their investment in these films. You want to pull those threads together in everything, for everything. So you are genuinely part of this universe that needs to all check out, needs to complement each other in every way, really. So I'm happy to be a kind of a movable, kind of just jelly-like actor. I'm happy. You tell me it's a different scene every day, I'm good. It kind of keeps it exciting in a way.
Yeah.
So kind of on the topic of that, if Dar-Benn were to come back as a variant or through time travel or anything like that, are there any characters in the MCU that you would particularly want to cross over with?
I'm going to say what you all want me to say.
Mine. If I was in the MCU, it's got to be Iron Man.
That would be cool. I mean, oh gosh, who would I cross? There are so many, and again, there are so many kind of like background characters you think could that person like come around from the outside and become someone big. I mean, it would have to be Loki though, wouldn't it? And Daredevil. It would have to be me, Loki, and Daredevil, my two close buddies, teaming up and crossing over in the way that we always dreamed that we would when we first worked together.
Once upon a Halloween, I think that might have happened.
Once upon a Halloween, we were like, we can make this happen, right? I guess put your answers on a postcard to Kevin on that one.
That's amazing. Zawe, thank you so much for hanging with us and being such a good sport and being so enthusiastic about this project. We love when people really care about it and they think you're so thoughtful with your answers about all of this, and we really appreciate it. It makes it so much more fun for us too. So thank you for hanging with us on Phase Zero.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Honestly, thank you, and thank you for taking the time and watching the film and holding this franchise up. It's like, I think it's kind of hard work at the moment. So thank you, and it's just great to be able to talk about it and not be on strike, and give some nuggets of insight to those people who really are kind of delighted by that stuff. So. Thanks very much.
Actually, of course. I think we're all so lucky to do what we do in this world when we're doing stuff like this for a living. So genuinely, thank you. We're grateful for your time, and hopefully we'll talk to you soon.
Hopefully. Thank you.